Well, I
Well,
know I got blacklisted on our house in Oregon, which I thought was kinda interesting. Maybe they didn't realize it was the parsonage to the church,
yeah,
even though it was
That's
right next door to the
insane.
yeah,
church. I thought it was pretty
they
funny that they
shared
showed up in the
property.
first place, but,
Yeah.
and I would have those conversations, and I would always tell them, I say, "Yeah, I'd love to sit down and talk with you," which probably gave them a false hope, but it was
Mhm.
always in the idea of, and I told him, I said, "You know, I'll compare scripture with you." I said, "But it needs to be from the Bible." And I said, "And here's my one rule, that we read the verse before it and and we read the verse after whatever
Hmm.
you want to bring up." Because I found a lot of things were being taken out of context and
Absolutely.
Right.
given meanings that they shouldn't have been. And, you know, and I had a group of elders that came, and then they came back again. They brought other people with them, and an
Yes.
older elder, and this kind of thing. And this probably happened 3 or 4 times, and then they stopped coming, and I had one of their phone numbers, and I asked, "Hey, are you ever gonna come back?" And he said, "Well, we were told we're not supposed to."
You were told
I was like,
no.
"Well, yeah, they probably figured out this is a Baptist preacher.
Exactly.
The chances here of conversion is very slim to none, but,
It
you know."
it's actually really interesting. They probably because they found out you're vocationally in ministry, that is probably why they were no longer allowed to go because they kind of know they're not gonna convert
Yeah.
a
Right.
leader of
Yeah.
a church that is opposed to theirs. So, that was actually something me and Logan had talked about earlier today, actually. We have some friends that are considering going full-time ministry out here in Utah with us and, being sent by an organization and officially being, like, sponsored missionaries. But my friend was talking to me, and she is a little hesitant to actually do that because actually being considered clergy or considered being a part of another church leadership in a place like Utah can actually really hurt your witness.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, they're not gonna be as willing to have those conversations.
100%. But with
Yeah.
someone like me, where I'm like, hey, I just moved out to Utah. I moved out here because I like to have spiritual conversations. They love that stuff. And they're like, oh my gosh, somebody wants to talk about religion. Somebody wants to talk about faith, especially in Utah, where if you're a missionary sent to Provo, Utah, the epicenter of your faith, there are not a lot of options to present the gospel, their form of the gospel to anyone that's not a child. So they will jump on any opportunity to talk to an adult about their faith if they're so able to. And so I think that was to our advantage. That's one of the reasons why we got to meet with them for so long. But also not being officially like, what's your job? And I could say, hey, I'm a sales manager versus saying, yeah, I'm a missionary where people pay me to
Right.
come out here and talk to you people about your religion and try to show you the real Jesus. Like
Yeah.
it can actually hurt your witness to be in clergy out here. And so kind of flying under the radar and just being a person who's open to those conversations is a really great way to kind of get yourself in the door with LDS members and having those conversations a lot of the time.